Hello and welcome everyone. My name is Mariella Herberstein. I'm the Chair of Academic Senate. I hope you had a really restful break over the Christmas period and an excellent start to the new year. In this video blog, I will summarize the meeting of Academic Senate that was held at the end of last year on December 6. The minutes of this meeting will be available on the Senate website and the URL is below. And once we've ratified the minutes at the next Senate meeting, plus already available on that Senate website is the Senate in Brief that lists all the resolutions made at the December 6 meeting. But back to the meeting. As we always start every Senate meeting, we acknowledge the country and we welcomed all our visitors and took and noted the apologies from members, and then we resolved to accept the minutes from the previous meeting. There were a couple of items of business arising. The first was a report from the Academic Integrity Working Party, an update on their progress, which was noted. And the second was a progress report from me on two proposed working parties for 2017. The first is a working party to develop a model of shared governance between Senate and the faculty boards, and this developed from this proposal is an outcome of the review of delegations that was conducted earlier in 2016. The second working party then deals with the consequences of devolving delegation to faculty boards, and is namely a realignment of the purpose of Senate. So if work that's currently sitting with Senate is devolved to the faculty boards, what then is the remaining purpose and work for Senate? So I presented an approximate timetable of both this project as they would run in parallel with each other, and Senate resolved to update, to note this update. The next agenda item was the report from the chair, and here I briefly reflected on 2016. I took over as chair of Academic Senate in May, and I informed Senate that 2016 was a very successful year for Senate. We have completed 5 Senate projects and we commenced another 6 projects that are scheduled to complete in 2017. I completed my report by thanking the many colleagues in Senate but also beyond who have helped and supported me in my role as chair. Following my update, the next agenda item was the Vice Chancellor update to Senate. The Vice Chancellor reflected on the review of delegations. He also informed Senate that the Higher Education Standards Panel has published a report on improving the transparency of higher education admissions processes, and this report was released in November. And the report calls for greater consistency in language to describe ATAR thresholds across universities. You may all be familiar with the usual newspaper report about universities advertising ATARs, but then admitting students at different ATARs. The Vice-Chancellor explained that Macquarie University is moving away from ATAR-based admissions and offers a number of alternative pathways for prospective students. The Vice-Chancellor also commented on the recent ARC and NHMRC grant successes at Macquarie University, and he updated Senate on the current admissions for 2017, noting an increase in first preferences for Macquarie University. Finally, the Vice-Chancellor concluded his report by thanking Senate and the senators for their work and wishing everyone a safe and restorative holiday. Following the two updates from the Chair of Senate and from the Vice-Chancellor, we have question time. And during question time, the Vice-Chancellor was asked whether the alternative entry pathways would increase the cost of administration for the university, and he answered in the affirmative, but added that the higher retention rate of students through alternative pathways counteracts any increase in the cost of admission. The Vice-Chancellor was also asked to comment on the political situation in the United States and how that might affect the higher education sector in Australia. he responded that if visa requirements are tightened, that might make Australia more attractive to international students. This concluded question time. Our next agenda point was student-led business, and there were no items raised at the December 6th meeting. We then moved on to the items for approval, and Senate approved a number of items, and all the items are listed in the Senate in brief document. These items include an amendment to the academic calendar, an adjustment to the assessment policy, and the approval of the English language statement. But for more detail, please have a look at the Senate in brief document. The next agenda items are items for discussions. Here, Senate takes some time to discuss matters that come to Senate. And in our first item for discussion, we welcomed the head of Human Resources, Nicole Gower, who spoke to the proposed promotions criteria, which were circulated prior to the meeting to the senators. What followed was a very engaged and affirmative discussion of the criteria, with several specific questions raised about the allocation of points for research, the function of the interview, and also the role of the head of department in that whole promotions process. The next item for discussion was the result of the end-of-year surveys of senators on how Senate has been working for them for 2016. So I initiated this feedback and I presented the results along with plans to address some of the issues raised, which included the length of the agenda, the length of the meetings, and so on. Similar to my review of how Senate worked, in item 11.3, I invited the chairs of the Senate committees of ASQC, the Academic Senate Quality Committee, the SLTC, Senate Learning and Teaching Committee, and the R&RTC, the Research and Research Training Committee, and I asked the chairs to provide a short summary of their main activities and achievements on these committees, which they did. And in summary, they were all very happy with the progress of their committees and praised that 2016 was a very successful year for them as well. In item 11.4, I presented suggestions that were brought to Senate by the senators for projects that Senate should be considering for 2017. So previously senators were asked to submit suggestions, also to engage with their officers and departments, and during as presenting this summary to Senate, I invited suggestions from the floor about these individual suggestions, and I advised Senate that in the February meeting, which happens on February 21, we will identify those projects that are within the remit of Senate, and we will also prioritize the projects to make sure we complete the most important projects first. In item 11.5, we're still on the items for discussions. The Deputy Chair of Senate, Professor Jackie Phillips, updated Senate on the induction schedule for new members of Senate, which is planned to run in February 2017. And we invite all new members for a 2-hour induction session, but we also invite more experienced members of Senate to attend and to talk about their experiences on Senate. Item 12 on the agenda are questions on notice here. Senators can propose questions that require some time to prepare the answer for, but in the December meetings there were no questions on notice. In item 13 of the agenda were a number of reports that Senate resolved to note and to ratify. These were reports from the Senate committees and were available, the reports from faculty boards. In item 14, which was any other business, the head of governance services, Zoe Williams, spoke to the recent Senate elections, which were held just a couple of months earlier, and she notified Senate that an elected position was not filled and that her unit will work with that particular faculty to fill that vacancy. And finally, under other business, Academic Senate resolved to approve the development and drafting of a procedure to support the exclusion of those students who had not met the professional program requirements in the general coursework rules. And that final resolution concluded the last Senate meeting for the year in 2016, and I also wished all the senators a very restful break. The next meeting of Senate is on February 2021 on Tuesday. It starts at 9:30, and as with all Senate meetings, this Senate meeting is open to observers. So if you do want to come along to observe the Senate meeting on the 21st of February, please email the contact below. And as always, I'm available to you. If you have any questions, please just contact me directly. And with that, I'll leave you and talk to you in my next video blog. Bye bye.